apologize for that break occasioned by power surge. Still TMI Thursday, and I've got me on set the National Coordinator in charge of enforcement, Musical Copyright Society of Nigeria, Prince Abiodun Egwahide, Esquire. Prince, so good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. As a background, on the 26th was World International Property Day. Intellectual Property Day, 2022 edition. And I think on the 22 was 23rd World Book Day.
World Book Day.
And then yes, and then we had another one, United Nations Day for Innovation and Creativity. And we had you via phone on that one.
Right.
Let's begin. What constitutes intellectual property against the background that, you know, there is a global recognition of it, and then there are several ancillary, you know, platforms that can be exploited and harnessed for return, so to speak. But let's start from the foundation.
First and foremost, I think the recognition given to intellectual property today boils down to show the importance that is given to the new knowledge economy. If you recall, in those days, the richest people in the world used to be the people who have steel mill, oil wells, and when you talk about that, you are looking at maybe the likes of owners of the steel conglomerate in the United States. But let's even come home so that it will be easier for us to appreciate. So I'm sure in years past, when you are talking about the rich people in Nigeria, the likes of Ekene Dili Chukwu, Chief Gabriel Benedion, in recent times, Jimovia, and a host of others.
Yeah.
And when you look at all of these people, what is significant in what they do? They have businesses where you can see the tangible income that comes in. Is that you own a bank, or you are owner of an airline, or you own a steel mill, or a construction company, as the case may be.
Okay.
But these days, I think the issue of wealth has transformed from bricks and mortar to intellectuality. If you check today and you say, going by the checkered history of wealth in the United Kingdom, you might want to think that the richest person in the United Kingdom today, it's the Queen of England, because of the land holding and succession thing.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you clearly, that is no near to the truth. Yes, the richest woman by recent survey in the United Kingdom has turned out to be a woman who before now was living on welfare in the United Kingdom. What has brought her into the limelight of wealth? It's an author of the popular children books, this Harry Potter series, J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling today, who was a single parent and could not even afford to live a decent life because of her authorship in books. The Harry Potter series has turned out to be one of the richest in the United Kingdom. And if you look at that, even the woman in question do not own a printing press. All she does is writing, all right? Then you come back closer, you find the likes of the man who is tagged to be one of the richest in the world today, Bill Gates, who is a writer of software programs.
Yeah.
Even the computer that his software runs on, he doesn't manufacture one. All right? We can come back home to even one of the youngest Nigerian who turned billionaire in recent times, Chinedu Echero. What did he do? He wrote a program, an application that was bought over from him by Apple. And he sold it for $1 billion. And that today is almost about 500 billion naira.
No.
All right? If you look at all of these, given the background that for you to now talk about wealth, it has to be with your creativity and innovation. it only stands to reason that the world should celebrate and let people recognize the fact that there is the need to appreciate intellectual property. I think it's on this background that days like Intellectual Property Day is set aside, the World Book Day, Innovation and Creativity Day, just for us to recognize the need for the new knowledge economy, that the days of bricks and mortar are all over.
Fantastic. Fantastic. When you look at what's happening in other climes, like you made reference to J.K. Rowling in the UK and what she's been able to amass for herself, why is it difficult to replicate same back here? Because there are a lot of authors, there are a lot of people who have the capacity to create, have a lot of capacities as it relates to creativity and innovation. What are the challenges back here in Nigeria? Why this is not so?
I think it's very unfortunate that in the 21st century, we are still too selfish and parochial. You know, our policy makers and those who are involved in ensuring that laws are obeyed needs to rise up in their game. You know, it's very unfortunate that you're in a country where, rather than for you to have continuity in everything that you do, you know, after a particular administration or a particular government, there is a gap. Nature abhors vacuum.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, what you have in this part is if today you are governor of all the minister or somebody who is in charge with responsibility to ensure that even this intellectual property we are talking about is enforced and applied correctly. Yes. The day you leave office, another man comes. All your subordinates are afraid to carry on from where you stopped. Because for them, they do not know whether you have the same dream
or not
with the man who has just left office. Whereas it ought not to be so. Yes, this is not about persons, it's about institutions.
Okay.
Yes, when you have institutions that are properly put in place, then you don't, who cares who the headship is? And I think one of the biggest problems we have is that with respect to continuity. All right? A new sheriff is in town. Every effort you have made, it takes you a long time to come back to begin from where you stopped. How do you progress in a society like that? It is very unfortunate. And unless we cut out of that, we have a long way to go. It's almost like beginning again. Bachelor, BA, begin again, begin again. How long? You know, you must be a master of the game.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the major problem that is bedeviling intellectual property in this part of the world is the will to take on these things, because the people who are really into violating the rights of right owners are those who are either privileged to find themselves in certain opportunities where, because of their selfish disposition, they know that this is what the law provides. They rather it doesn't go that way because they are going to be affected at that material time. So how do you deal in a situation like that? Today we complain about insecurity and all of that. If you look at the theme for the World Intellectual Property Day, it's saying IP and the youth, innovating for a better future. All right? How do you get a better future when those who are creative, those who are innovative, you do not protect and guarantee their efforts? And then when they now turn around to use the same ingenuity into criminality, then you are overwhelmed.
You hound them. You hound them. Yeah,
so
you hound them.
So this is the problem.
Yeah.
So we must rise up to the challenge. It doesn't matter whose fault is God. We have good laws. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, but oftentimes the implementation of those laws and those who are charged with responsibility that are not seeing the need to ensure that these laws are not just a piece of furniture or a design in the books. They are meant to be obeyed. And when you disobey them, you will be sanctioned. I recall somebody who, a very highly placed person, I visited him on the courtesy call. And he said, you don't sermonize the people to desist from committing crime. So you sanction them, including intellectual property. So why will anybody be exonerated or be treated with kid gloves?
Yeah.
Particularly when we are talking about the new knowledge economy. How can we grow? The only thing that is giving us recognition anywhere in the world today is because of the creative industry. And yet we do not have domestic, though we have laws, we do not have the capacity to protect their ingenuity. is bleeding when you talk about this subject.
Well, when you say the laws are there, quite all right. You're saying we don't have the capacity to enforce them or to implement them. What exactly is the point?
It's not that we do not have the capacity to enforce them. It is that those who ordinarily are supposed to support the ecosystem, for one reason or the other, are just not ready to. You know, either because you find your brother is involved, your friend is involved, your sister is involved. And, you know, these are things that you cannot resort to self-help.
Yeah.
When it comes to enforcement of compliance, institutions are involved in prosecution.
Yeah.
So if those institutions do not live up to their responsibilities, then there is a problem.
Absolutely.
If you are found today in any form of copyright violation, yes, the much I can do is either to channel it through the Nigerian Copyright Commission or through the Nigerian police. Okay, if we have done our bit and then the police lack the capacity to deal, or the Nigerian copyright capacity for whatever reasons, then it's unfortunate. What are you doing? Now you are leaving them with the feeling that some persons are above the law.
Yeah.
And that's really unfortunate. And I think that's a major issue that we're having.
All right, let's talk about the people themselves. What is the level of ownership in driving the message of intellectual property rights? To what extent are they aware that they have a right to be protected, and when this right is protected, they are likely going to make more money or have more resources at their disposal?
You see, I think the major problem is the level of literacy of most of these people in the creative industry. And you find those who are literate, they are beginning to realize that intellectual property is somebody's property. Gone are those days when people use your creativity, your innovations, and walk away. I'm sure in recent times you are beginning to hear even on radio and television, oh, this person is having issues with this record label. This is it's all the awareness that is being created today with respect to intellectual property rights. Otherwise, before now, these were things that were just done for nothing.
Okay.
So, to a large extent, there is a very huge awareness with respect to intellectual property rights, and the people are beginning to appreciate that, oh, as I have a right, I can be protected, or there are laws that protect my creativity and my innovation, and they are beginning to exploit it, and it's coming in for their favor. Okay. But there are still some who probably are more comfortable with showbiz. And as far as they are concerned, they are gaining a lot of popularity, and that popularity could even be more if only they understand that their right also needs to be protected. So at the end of the day, it is something that everyone needs to continue to deal with, to continue to sensitize and let people know that whatever you have created, by way of music, arts, or name it, it has a protection.
Yeah, exactly the point I was going to raise. I mean, the coverage of intellectual property, you mentioned music, you mentioned arts. What is the, can you give us a breakdown, like a picture of the coverage area of intellectual property?
With respect to intellectual property, if you want to know the coverage, it's easy to just look at Section 1 of the Copyright Act.
Okay.
It provides for the works protected by copyright, and every work protected by copyright falls under intellectual property. Yes, there are 6 of them essentially. Okay. You have literary works, the books thing we're talking about, musical works, music, that's a component of music. Yeah. You have sound recordings, which is also a component of music. You have artistic work. You have cinematography and film. And you have broadcast. Even the works you do here is protected by copyright. Okay. It's an intellectual property. This program right now, nobody else can just wake up tomorrow and start using it without the authority of ITV.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So these are the coverage. It's not just about music. It's not just about cinematography. It also involves artistic works, it involves literary works, and it also includes broadcast. So these are the works that are protected by copyright under the law.
There's something you said a while ago that struck me, that part of the challenge is the fact that those who are in the know in most cases, are also the ones who run foul of this law. What do you make of that, and how are you dealing with that as a challenge using the platform of Musical Copyright Society of Nigeria as we talk about the intellectual property days in retrospect?
Yeah, one of the things we are doing, to that extent, I'm sure those who know me will tell you clearly, is we are not leaving any stone unturned. I am in constant dialogue and contacts with the police, for instance, because enforcement is part of their responsibility. The Police Act clearly established the role of the police, which is subject to the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution. So they can't run away from it. As every law that is breached, it needs whoever has breached that law needs to be sanctioned. So it is not new when every commissioner of police or every assistant inspector general of police who is on board, I am there on the courtesy call. It is to intimate him that this is what the law is all about, and this is what we are supposed to do. And such a person will have no choice but to rise up to the challenge. If you're a commissioner of police and all you're interested in is to fight violent crimes at the detriment of intellectual property theft, then I would say you have not done well enough. Because today, part of the reasons that creates room for the violent crimes is the fact that some of these people, their resources have not been properly harnessed in the right direction. Because when you even look at the average youth in Nigeria today, a lot of them are into social crime, the one they popularly call Yahoo Yahoo. Yeah. And if you really sit down and look at what they do in that context, you'll be amazed that the outcome of a Yahoo Yahoo product is not different from what Chinedu did in 2005 when he created that hot spot. So why don't we start to engage these people, particularly looking at even what the World Body is saying with respect to the youth in 2022? You know, innovating into the for a better future. How do you get into a better future? There's the need to engage these young people.
That's a future that is driven by knowledge.
Yes,
driven by knowledge.
Because that's what we have.
And that future is already now.
It's here, and we have the resources overwhelming. The average youth is, in fact, is oversaturated. And so don't leave him to use it the wrong way. So I'm saying, let us get them together and ensure that putting them on the course, it can only be better, because today, you look at the likes of Davido and Wizkid and all of that. What? They are youth. What are they doing? They are using their intellectual property in the range where they are recognized all over the world. And there are a million others. The only problem they are having right now is that they do not have the framework to also get a leap for you and I to recognize them. It's not to say that those ones we are talking about are the best.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
A lot more are better, but all they just need is
the opportunity, the platform.
Yes. And so you and I and every one of us must recognize that we have a youth population that is very determined with all the resources it takes for the 21st century. What is the population of the youth all over the world today? We have about 1.8 billion youth. In that number, 90% of that is from is from developing countries. All right, and if you take that statistics and imagine what 90% of 1.8 can do with the level of intellect they exude, we will be talking about something different. Nobody will be interested in oil and all of that if only we can develop this. And just like you said, you asked earlier, we all must rise up to the challenge, particularly those who have been saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that laws are obeyed. It doesn't matter who us is God. The Nigerian Copyright Commission should be able to sanction any organization and live up to his regulatory mandate. The police should be able to ensure that there is enforcement of compliance. You are not doing Prince Bedu a favor, for instance, if you sanction somebody who has done what is wrong. Yes, you are only doing your constitutional role and duty.
Fantastic. I'd like us to talk about the royalty aspect of intellectual property, right? Because that seems to be the crux of the matter. The feeling is that, well, these things, they come in pittances, and that seems to be a discouragement. Can you give us some insight into royalties here as it relates to intellectual property right?
Yeah, royalties with respect to intellectual property can be something that you look forward to as your retirement benefit. The reason is, when you're in your active career, you might not see what comes to you as something very significant. Yes, if you go out for a show right now, you get 30 million, 50 million, or 100 million, as the case may be. And then somebody's telling you, oh, you have in a year 5 million or 500,000, as the case may be, as royalty, and other. You say, these guys are insulting me. I recall in the past when you invite some artist to say, come and take your check. You say, how much is the check? 5 million. You say, I don't need it. Yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you, yes. He would even come to sign for it. You know. So, reason, because of what he's doing at this material time.
Yeah.
But I tell you, in the evenings of their life, the stories are changed.
Absolutely.
Yes, you find that you won't even get 10% of that. If you find that, you'll be excited and be very happy to jump at that. But having said that, I'll tell you, it could be better to a very large extent. I remember in the telephone conversation we had, you asked a question that is very similar to this. And you were talking, and based on the team for the Innovation and Creativity Day, which is collaboration. You're asking, what kind of collaboration are we having and all that? I think the major problem is that some of us have failed to understand that we live in an ecosystem. What affects one affects the other. If I am a user and I refuse to obtain the license that will generate royalty for the owners, that owner maybe your brother, maybe my brother. Okay? I'm like robbing Peter to pay Paul. I don't want to pay. I don't want to give you your dues. And I'm holding back to it. Tomorrow you have a problem. And you become a menace, a nuisance to society. At that point, everybody's running around to saying, how can we help this? How can we help that? So my simple advice is, it doesn't matter what it is. The law has provided for room to negotiate this royalty. That's the law. You know, it said negotiate the licensing. It's not cast on stone.
Okay.
But there is a like a template to determine what and what ought to be. Yeah. So, and there is a limit you also cannot go to. So, if these things are done correctly the way it's supposed to be done, I am sure both the user and the owners will be happy. And in that regard, you find that those who are running away from the little amount available right now as royalty may even be more interested because it will augment what they have in total at the end of the day.
Fantastic. If you just join us, it's the TMI Thursday, and today on the program we have Prince Biodun Egwahide Esquire, the National Coordinator Enforcement Musical Copyright Society of Nigeria, joining us to review the World International Property Day 2022 against the background that this day is set aside globally to draw awareness to the potentials inherent in intellectual property rights. And what with the fact that the present world lives on knowledge, is a knowledge-driven economy, and it's imperative that we explore all that is available within the knowledge space to drive our economy, and then of course enhance and increase the potentials and capacities of individuals, especially our youths. I mean, you look at Nigeria population of about 200 million, and perhaps the youth population could be over 50 million. That's a huge, huge reservoir of knowledge and resources that could be harnessed and deployed to make the country better and make the society a better place. Today, everybody seems to be concerned about the spate of Yahoo, which is the internet fraud. But unfortunately, we're not really looking at the recipe to be able to deal with this challenge. It's not enough to arrest and prosecute. I mean, when you arrest one, there are more than one that are being breeded somewhere that probably would take the space of that, and that becomes a big challenge. But if we look at it holistically to find a solution using the platform of intellectual property rights, I'm sure that we can actually go a long way to make better results and change the narratives as relates to this issue. Let me come back to you now to talk about something that's been a huge concern. We talked about lack of seeming collaboration, all right? What about that seeming lack of interest on the part of the youths to leverage on what is available through the platform of the intellectual property right as it relates to innovation and creativity? Do you see that as a challenge?
Yeah, it is a challenge. You find that some of the people who are even supposed to help in ensuring that this message goes all the way down are responsible for some of these challenges. It's just that you don't use platforms like this to mention names. Otherwise, I probably would have...
Name names.
Yes. You know, you are doing everything you can do today to anchor this program. You called me, reason because you want the people to be aware. You want the people to be informed. That is one of the core mandate of your station and you as a journalist.
Yeah.
Yes. But you can imagine a situation where somebody like you turns around to mislead the people. First, because you are not probably talking on air, they will believe he is coming from Sonny Duke. So don't you know him? He's a member of the Fourth Estate of the Realm. So whatever he says must be that correct.
Okay.
This is a major issue. Yes. So those who have the knowledge, otherwise if you don't know, keep quiet. If somebody comes to you to say, this is what it is, don't discourage them. Because if you don't get involved, you will not know. I have told some persons in the past, I said, you don't challenge something you don't know. Before you start challenging, you need to understand the subject. And the only way you can also bring about a change in a group or in a body is for you to be part of that body. So if there is something that is in your own interest, and for whatever reason you have chosen not to be part of that thing, how are you able to bring about a change if there's something wrong in the system? So it is important for people to be involved. Then there will be constructive engagement. Yeah, I mean, no human organization is perfect.
Yeah.
It is the fact that you are part of the system you can say, no, we're not comfortable with this, or it shouldn't be like this or the other way. And when you all now, when everyone now put heads together in that regard, I'm sure we will be able to develop a better result.
Do you think that the general mindset towards tax payment is a huge impediment towards collection of royalties, intellectual property, right?
Very true.
Yeah, so tell me more.
Yeah. You see, the honest truth is, there is a big confusion. People see royalty payment as a tax or a levy. No, I have tried to correct people. I said, no, it is not. I say, tax you are supposed to pay based on a fraction of your income. It's unfortunate that things are done in a manner where you are really no longer able to separate the grains from the shaft. All right, somebody can come here now and see your beautiful studio and say you are going to pay 1 million naira. But you're supposed to have assets and liabilities. Are we even sure that you have made profit? That is supposed to now determine how much you're going to pay as tax. But because of the attitude of the people, forever wanting to evade everything. So what do you do? So if you are government who is responsible to ensure that people will pay tax, you now come and maybe use that best of judgment. Because first, we do not even provide the necessary documentations for fair assessment.
Okay. All
right? You have an organization who will not engage an accountant or an auditor. The CMO or managing director is the alter ego. As money is coming out, everything is coming back to his pocket. You want to buy this, it comes from his pocket. There are no good record system. So how do you now determine tomorrow that what he's supposed to pay as tax is exactly what he's supposed to pay? So oftentimes, this leaves government with the attitude of best of judgment, which is not the best.
Yeah.
All right?
But under the present circumstance,
so you find that that is the attitude they bring to issues like royalty payment. All right? Somebody who is using work that is protected by copyright in his trade or business, much will tell you is that it is very different from tax, because it is not something you say, I just started this business today, I need to do it for 6 months before I will consider what to pay. It's a permit you need even before you begin the business. So as you are contemplating the idea of setting up that business, you should also be thinking of how to obtain the permit for music and sound recordings, or even cinematography for that same business. Like I have asked some people, I say, would you begin a business, for instance, without having to either build the house or lease or rent the house?
No.
I said, that's what intellectual property is. Intellectual property is just an intangible property.
Yeah.
So if you must use it, you need to obtain permission from the owner. So to think that it's a tax and you now want to visit the inadequacies of taxation on it, I said, it will be making a very big mistake. So royalty payment is nothing like tax payment. Yes, and I don't want to go into issues of taxes, but for the purpose of this conversation,
yeah,
I want to make clearly that they are two different things. And if you do not use such works, nobody will expect you to make any payment with respect to royalty. So if you use music and they say, come and obtain permit for the music you use, and it is evident that you use music, it is only proper that you obtain that permit, because failure to will mean that you are feeling that you are bigger than the law, and nobody is bigger than the law.
What do you make of this feeling by some artists that they are underpaid royalties due them?
First and foremost, when an artist says he's underpaid royalty, I do not think that is correct at all. Because in Musical Copyright Society of Nigeria today, there is an app that has just been created, Go Create. Go Create is an app that will determine and show you where and how much of your work that is being used.
Online?
Online, yes. You know, once an artist registers on that Go Create, if you play his work 10 times in ITV, it will be indicated there. So when ITV pays royalty for the year, it is automatic. It's so transparent. It's very accountable. Yeah, but you find that some of the artists who are complaining are even those who you are just trying to carry along. Some of them, nobody is even using their works. But because they are right owners and they are registered with the society,
yes,
then you now create what you call general distribution. You know, let my people go, as far as long as you are there. And this is even the part of distribution that some of the A-list artists are challenging. They are saying the right that is due to them, you are taking from it
and
to settle all these people.
Like robbing Peter to pay Paul.
So you find that those who are complaining ideally have no reasons to complain, because if you have your works that are properly used, it is going to be easy to determine. So the ones who enjoy general distributions are the ones who say they are underpaid. Reason, it's supposed to just be gratuity to all of them. So in that context, it's not very true that there are people who are underpaid, because there is a mechanism that determines how much. And coupled with the fact that every collective society is regulated. Yes, you collect billion. You are not going to spend all the billions. There is a way it's supposed to be spent. There's what goes for admin. There's what goes for distribution.
Okay.
And these are the things that are highly followed. And
Yeah.
if you don't follow it, of course, the hammer will fall on you.
Absolutely.
Don't forget that the collective society is a company who is in trust for people.
Yeah.
And that is the government's interest in it. So
Yeah.
it's not like any other organization. They'll probably tell you, oh, it's a company limited by guarantee. Yes, but under the close supervision of the Nigerian Copyright Commission. So if you run foul of the law, of course, because that is what brought about the Copyright Collective Management Regulation of 2007. So every operation of yours is determined by the CMO regulation of 2007.
Fantastic. It's always a delight to have Prince Biodun Egwuakhede here to ventilate his views, perspectives as it relates to intellectual property right. Today is not an exception. But on the final note, we're still in the euphoria of the 2022 International Property Day. What does the future hold for those who have the capacity to be creative and innovative and then leverage on all of these platforms that are available to smile to the bank, because it's all about smiling to the bank. If people who've had the opportunity to create some content or materials in the past, sometimes when you see them today, you weep. I mean, we had a courtesy visit with you. You paid us a courtesy visit some few days back, and I was particularly moved by a certain man who, in spite of that song that an average person, an average adult man, would want to be the soundtrack for their obituary or remembrance and stuff like that. I mean, he's in a parlous state. So I'd like to get your perspective on this going forward.
Yeah, I'll tell you clearly that the world we are in today, particularly the digital space, has created a huge platform for our youth, if only they know what they are in for.
Okay.
Yes, 10, 20 years back was the analog regime. A lot of things you do, it takes you so much for you to be heard or known. But these days, with the smartphones we carry, the availability of different platforms in the social media gives room for one to be very creative and develop his talents. So I think what we really need right now is a proper framework by policy makers to enhance the creativity of our people, because if these young people who turn out to be very creative, creates all of these things, and then we do not have a framework that is encouraging innovation and productivity at the end of the day, it becomes something that you cannot say is a win-win for whoever the creator is. So it's an environment today that you can always smile to the bank, given your talent put in the right perspective.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, it's no longer what it used to be. Today, it's the new knowledge economy. You can be a job provider. You can create wealth on your own without having to work for any person.
Yeah.
All you probably just need is to go and buy a smartphone and your business has started.
Absolutely.
So talking about unemployment, I think the youth can even be employers of
labor
or on their own. Yeah, you find a youth who has one or two people who admires him and they hang around him, and he is doing something, and they're also learning in the process. Well, this time we're talking about the positive one.
Exactly where I was coming to. Because a few weeks ago we saw two guys, 14, 15 years or thereabout, came all the way from Warri to Benin. And they said they are going to learn work. And then they were asked, what kind of work? Said yahoo yahoo. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, so the sky can be a limit for our youth, given the new knowledge economy that is in the 21st century.
All right, thank you very much. In a world driven by knowledge, in the new knowledge economy, we can harness and explore all the potentials therein to be better as an individual and then collectively as a people. Prince Biodun Egbashide, Esquire, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
It's the TMI Thursday. We'll take a short break. We'll be back, and then we'll be having a major talking segment. Yuda Doche, popular Nollywood actor, producer, director, just got a second wife. Considering his age, there's so much to talk about in that direction. We'll be back with you in a moment. Don't go away.